Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you here today for an article that's a bit on the longer side here from American Greatness. It says, remember the Khmer Rouge. So this article, just by the title of it, you can probably think this is going to get a little dark, and I really bring this out as a thing to talk about because we need to be reminded of the horrors of a certain ideology that is somehow, for some reason, making its way across the West at this point and leads to nothing but misery, death, and destruction. So that, of course, is communism. So let's go ahead and see what this article has to say. And I haven't read it yet, so I'm going to be reading it with you here for the first time. So it says, a forgetful society lives in the precipice of history's abyss. Lloyd Billingsley, don't know who that is, reminded us of this when he said, as ever, the struggle against genocide is the struggle of memory against forgetting. Not cutting that cough out. It says Billingsley was referencing the Communist Khmer Rouge's democidal frenzy of 1975 to 1979 that killed over 2 million people, specifically Cambodian children, were clubbed to death and babies smashed against trees. That is not a joke, folks. You can actually go look that up if you want to see the horrors of these group of people and the things that they did. That is true. He provided a link to a historical, contemporaneous 1977 account of the communist regime and its bloodthirsty Angka Lo, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and I apologize, which is translated as Organization on High, leadership's initial crimes against the Cambodian people and humanity, Murder of a Gentle Land, the untold story of the communist genocide in Cambodia by John Barron and Anthony Paul. I might actually have to pick that up. It is a horrific chronicle of how the insidious tactics and crimes into which the murderous ideology of communism metastasizes and ultimately consumes a people. It is a lesson of history that humanity ignores at its peril. Consequently, in the hope of reminding the present about the past to preserve the future, let us delve into Barron and Paul's reportage of the survivors' accounts of the Khmer Rouge's barbarity, perpetuated in the name of the very people those communists tortured and killed. Says when he was deposed and in temporary exile in Mao's China, in his attempt to return to power, Prince Norodom Sihanouk became the titular leader of Cambodia's Royal Government of National Union. It was not long until the communists controlled this organization. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce his name. I just don't like mispronouncing names. Says, and he said, thus, or I guess not him, but the authors of that book said, thus, through little enterprise of their own, excuse me, the Cambodian communists almost overnight achieved a textbook objective of communists everywhere, a coalition that cloaked them with respectability and put at their disposal the resources of others. Stigmatized as foreign agents, they could not attract popular support. Now, with the real identity and aims obscured in the coalition, they would appeal to the people in the name of a prince trusted and esteemed by much of the populace. And having power in now democratic Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge regime and its Angka Lo leadership the cities and purging the populace. So the article is an article that the authors being quoted stated, civilization, the communists were striking at the concept of objects of the civilized, and the concepts of family, home, religion, education, commerce, and technology that formed the foundation. Democratic declared more than 2,000 years of Cambodian history have virtually ended. It is difficult to dispute that claim. So, the communist regime, as the cities and large villages were emptied and their residents forced into the countryside. Bullets, the man immediately crumpled to the ground, and several around him also fell. Indeed, a free as for in the village of Knasar, again, apologize if my pronunciation is wrong, everything that was said at home. Anka Lu directed Khmer Rouge soldiers quotes are legit because communism is not democracy, but kind of just a front they put on. Says Enka's spokesman attempted to indoctrinate the prisoners at night, repeatedly sounding a basic refrain: "All of you are technicians, you are educated men, and the simple village people didn't dare re-educate you. But we, your brothers from the army, are happy to re-educate and reshape you. In 2 years' time, maybe, when you have adapted yourselves to the new regime, you will be allowed to return to Phnom Penh and your former profession. Meanwhile, you have to help Enka produce rice to defend the country, never refuse Enka's orders, and stop thinking about your families." Yeah, they're going to return them there, right? So if any communist, if you ever get caught, tells you, oh yeah, you'll be able to go back eventually, it's just never going to be a thing. So just throw that out the window. It says, yet as the Cambodian people did keep thinking about their families, at least those they hoped were still alive, wherever the Khmer Rouge sent them. For these heartbroken family members and those who recalled life before the regime, Anka Lu declared them afflicted by a mental condition. So simultaneously, Anka identified and proclaimed the existence of a dreaded new malady, Chu Satek Aram, literally memory sickness. Anka considered that a person was suffering from memory sickness if he or she thought too much about life in pre-communist Cambodia. Anka attempted to cure the ailment by halving the rice ration of the afflicted, so cutting it in half. So sometimes the punishment for presumed malingering was more swift and direct. Overall, the Khmer Rouge's aim was to create true communism by eradicating everything, in italics. It says an Enka official in the Mongkol Bore district declared to build a democratic Cambodia by renewing everything on a new basis, to do away with every reminder of colonial and imperious culture, whether visible or tangible or in a person's mind. To rebuild our new Cambodia, 1 million men is enough. Prisoners of war, that is, people expelled from the cities and villages controlled by the government on April 17, 1975, are no longer needed, and local chiefs are free to dispose of them as they please. So the emphasis was actually in the original article or book. Jesus. So this was not an isolated instance. It was Khmer Rouge policy. The commander of a 30-man communist detachment stationed at a large farm 8 kilometers west of Sisophon summoned new villagers and warned, "Everything which belonged to the old society must be banished. All behavior henceforth had to be revolutionary. All conversation was to be conducted in revolutionary terms. Any lapses into old ways would be severely punished." During its heinous reign, by its own admission, what were the achievements of democratic Cambodia under the communist Khmer Rouge? It says, after the destruction of more than 1 million human beings, I almost said 1,000, which I would have been laughably low. So after the destruction of more than 1 million human beings, a once happy country, and a whole civilization, the premier of democratic Cambodia sums up the accomplishments of Anka Lu. In short, we have not made any noteworthy achievements except the revolutionary movement of the masses. So basically, we killed a lot of people for absolutely no reason. So it says, as Pol Pot indicated in the interview, Cambodia today is a land without universities. It also is a land without cities, commerce, art, music, literature, science, or hope. That's awful to see. And as the young refugee said, there is no love anywhere. By 1979, the killing fields were stilled. And again, the killing fields, go watch that movie. It'll give you a good idea about what this kind of stuff leads to. Says the Khmer Rouge's tyrannical rule over Cambodia was in history's dustbin, but his butchers were not before the bar of justice. For those Khmer Rouge who were not internally purged by the regime, the wheels of justice ground far longer than did the wheel of history that Anka Lu claimed compelled the democide. Decades passed. Ultimately, trials were held, though the justice wrought was scant. Yeah, I've read about some. It's like Pol Pot got away with it, essentially. Okay. So just read about, like, most of their main guys, essentially, just, if they ended up in jail, it was just kind of like, okay, but that was, like, the extent. No one was, nothing was done to them like what was done to a certain group of Germans after World War II ended. So it says, given the depths of the Khmer Rouge's crimes against humanity, it is impossible to imagine a justice that would have been comprehensive. Still, one could hope for more than the meager justice meted out to those bloodthirsty bastards. True. It says in Cambodia and some foreign quarters, compassionate people honored the dead and heralded the survivors' courage, vowing to never let the victims and their suffering be forgotten. Yet most of the world forgot, if they'd even paid attention at the time. This lesson of history, paid for by the suffering and the slaughter of the Cambodian people, was cavalierly lost in the mists of memory and indifference. So doing, the world only serves to ensure never again will be vowed yet again and again over the bodies buried in the latest fields by murderers masquerading as their victim saviors. Historical ignorance isn't bliss, it's suicide. So I wanted to share this all with you guys. That was actually a pretty powerful article, to be honest with you, but this is essentially what's happening here, just at a much slower rate. Communism, as the article said, is a religion. It's basically, or I shouldn't say it's a religion of, it's not a religion, but I mean, it's basically a religion of like, death, misery, and destruction. It can only destroy, it cannot create. It is the most evil ideology that has ever existed. And if we let this in here, as we seem to be doing, this country is doomed and the entire West is doomed. We need to fight back as legally as we possibly can, because otherwise this is the future that we're looking at, as something as violent and repressive as this. So let me know what you think below, add any comments you want to, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.